Hi, this is Brad, and I'm doing my first tequila taste test for you. I was in the CVS pharmacy slash drugstore today, and I happened getting some milk and some eggs and that sort of thing, and I happened upon a bottle of clearance tequila, which is this Ocho Rios made from blue agave. I've never heard of it, but it was reduced from about $17 down to roughly $7. So I thought, well, you know, it's a reposado made from blue agave. How good or bad can it be? So I'm gonna do a taste test on this, and I'm also going to compare it to this tequila, which was more expensive but was also reduced. I got it from a different store. This is El Cartel Blanco, and El Cartel also makes a tequila that has gold sparklies in it, and I've read some reviews on it that said, it looks kind of cool, but you know, it's more of a gimmick and it has a weird feel and viscosity to it. But from what I can gather, the silver is actually pretty good. Now, they are different tequilas, different class of tequila, and also, of course, one is a Blanco and one is a Reposado. And before we actually do some tasting, let's talk a little bit about tequila. First of all, to be tequila, it has to be at least 51% made from the blue agave plant, or sometimes they call it the Weber blue agave. So if it's not that, it can't be called tequila. And there's several classifications for tequila. When you see like Cuervo Gold, that's what's called a mixto, and it's agave mixed with a bunch of other junk. I won't get into all the stuff, but let's just suffice it to say that that's usually not a particularly good tequila, a mixto. And when you see the term gold, all that usually means is that gold coloring is added to a tequila that is minimally aged. So a minimally aged mixto usually is a good recipe for a hangover. Maybe it tastes okay in a margarita, but it's usually not the tequila you want to buy. This next, you get a Blanco. Okay, that's exactly what this El Cartel is, although I think it's a fairly good quality Blanco. And Blanco just means white, and typically it is unaged. Now, this particular tequila is 100% blue agave, which is what you do want to look for. Typically, when you buy a tequila, don't buy a mixto, buy one that's all agave. So there's no aging going on with this particular tequila. With the Ocho Rios, which is kind of a cheap store brand, in fact, it's made in it's made in Mexico. It's distributed. I'm going to turn the bottle here for a second. The name of the company is boy, I don't know if I can get a focus on that, but I can see it. Fairmont Limited of Mira Loma, California, and I think they are also known as, oh boy, I can't see it, but there's another larger company. Let me straighten out the camera, that I think distributes this. So, I mean, who knows where it's made, who knows what the quality is. As I mentioned, I haven't even tasted it yet, but it's less than $7, so what the heck. But back to the classifications of tequila. I mentioned that the Blanco or white is not in aged tequila. Typically they can still be very good. Usually aging brings out some favorable characters in tequila, and when they do age it, it's usually aged in oak barrels, many times which have been previously used. Usually they use either French oak or American oak. Now, this tequila is a reposado, and you can see down here, hopefully, I think you can see, I don't know if the camera can pick it up, tequila reposado. So reposado means rested, and what that means is that it is aged in oak typically for anywhere from 2 to 11 months, and it usually, the color that you see from the tequila is not like, typically at least, it's not like Cuervo Gold where they've added some caramel coloring or some coloring to it. That is imparted from the charred barrels that it's aged in. What I don't have in front of me, although I have some in the house, is what's called añejo, which is typically aged a minimum of 1 year. And then when you get much beyond that, let's say like in the age 3 to 5 years, you start getting into what's called ultra añejo or extra añejo. And usually those can be better for sipping. If they're higher quality tequilas, under most circumstances, they also taste better and are smoother. But reposado can be very good, so can a Blanco. Personally, I prefer an añejo. But here's what we have in front of us: a Blanco and a Reposado. So let's give these a try. Now, the first thing I'm gonna do is try the cheapie, the Ocho Rios. And again, I couldn't find out much about these guys. In fact, I'm gonna move the camera back, and I'm gonna turn to my trusty computer, and I'm gonna try to find the company. Here it is. I think it's called Levec or Levecki Corporation that distributes this stuff. So we're going to find out in a minute here, I should say, if it's good or if it's lousy. Now again, it says made from blue agave. Usually they say 100% blue agave, and it doesn't say that. So, but also when you have a reposado, it usually is 100% blue agave. So I'm not positive if it is or it isn't. Could be a mixto. I'm going to assume that it is blue agave for the sake of argument. So what I'm going to do is I've got a couple of nice Rydell glasses here, and I'm going to sip it. And I'm showing the bottles instead of my face because they are frankly better looking. But so I'm going to pick up a glass and I'll give you my impressions of it. I'm going to swirl it around a little bit, and it has a nice character. It's nothing overly strong or objectionable, and I'm going to take a little sip of it. So stand by. And you know what? It's not bad. I got to tell you, it's not bad. I'm going to take one more sip of it. It's got a little bit of burn. You know, you can tell it's not a top-notch tequila. Okay, is it appropriate for sipping? Probably not normally. Is it better than like something like Cuervo Gold? I would say so. I think it's a nicer quality tequila. On a scale of 1 to 10, you know, 6.5, 7, something like that. But that's not bad for $6, you know, and again, if you're making margaritas, that would be a very solid tequila. Sipping again, probably not so much, but you know, on a price to value type of a basis. And I'll get the camera a little bit closer. Again, I didn't pour a whole lot of it, but you can kind of see it's got a real pale hue to it, but it's not Blanco either. So I would say with the Ocho Rios, if you see it in CVS, and I just bought some today, I think it's worth $6 and something per bottle. And if you like tequila and you're not too much of a snob, I'd say give it a go. I certainly prefer this to Cuervo, and it's less expensive with the clearance at CVS, at least as of this moment. Obviously things are memorialized on YouTube for a while, so you know, who knows if it'll even be made after that. Now we're going to try again the El Cartel. It's got a real pretty bottle, as you can see. It is the Blanco, and let's stop talking about it and I'll taste it and I'll tell you what I think. So I'm going to swirl it around a little bit, take a little whiff. It has a very mild aroma. It doesn't make your it's kind of a crude term, but it doesn't make your nose hairs curl, you know what I mean? So it has a very, even though it's not aged, it has a mellow scent or aroma to it. I'm going to take a little sip of this tequila. And it's really apparent that even though it's not aged, the El Cartel is a much higher quality tequila. I'm not always the best person at describing all the flowery. Does it have, you know, sage in it, or does it have leather, or is there citrus? You know, hang on, I'm going to try it. Maybe I can tell you. Hang on. Oh, hell if I know. All I can tell you is it's a pretty good tequila. I think it's very smooth. It has very little burn. It has a very neutral taste to it. And I don't know how much. Some people, I suppose, would sip a Blanco. I usually prefer, if I'm going to sip a tequila, let me get the camera centered, to sip an anejo or something along those lines, something that's well aged. I'm going to take another sip. And if you notice, I took several sips of this, which probably tells you that it's a pretty good tequila. So it does have a very youthful flavor. It does have a full flavor, but not the same kind of a full flavor you'd have with an aged tequila. So it's obviously young, but it's very smooth. It's got a really nice, no aftertaste, no afterburn. As Blancos go, I would personally say this is excellent. I would say it's excellent. So as far as Blancos go on a 1 to 10, I guess I'd give it probably 9, 9.5, real solid. Now again, Blancos aren't my favorite tequila, but in terms of the Blancos I've tried, this is one of the best, and maybe the best. I don't know. I don't drink Blancos that much, but I have had some very nice Blanco tequilas. So there you go. That's enough of this review. Comparing a cheapie, Ocho Rios, which by the way is a town in Jamaica, and if you're ever there, they have a real interesting waterfall called Dun Rivers Falls that you can actually climb up, and I've done that before. But I'm sure the manufacturer probably just pulled this name out of a hat. Frankly, they're manufacturing, I would gather, for CVS or other drugstores. But you know what? For the money, it is not bad. It's really not. And that's part of the reason I recorded this, by the way. I googled Ocho Rios tequila. I didn't find anything on it, really, you know, so I thought, heck, I'll do a review and see if anyone has an interest. So again, a pretty good tequila, not the best you'll ever try, but really an outstanding tequila for the money, and that's the key right there. A reposado that we know is at least, you know, hopefully it's all blue agave. It is what I would consider to be very respectable in this price range. And then again, we have the El Cartel, which is exceptionally good for a Blanco. So there you go. I am not a complete expert on tequila, but I've been drinking it certainly for many years, and living here in Southern California and visiting Mexico many times, you do get a little bit of a knowledge and a flavor for it that goes well beyond what most people are used to, the Cuervo Gold. So perhaps my comments aren't as useful as somebody who is a master of this stuff, but I think there hopefully is some value in them nonetheless. So that's the review. Ocho Rios, pretty good, excellent for the money, and El Cartel, one of the better Blancos out there in my opinion. Very, very nice. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you find it useful, and if you have any questions, feel free to post those on YouTube in the comments section. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.